Hello, and welcome to the She Runs Strong podcast, powered by Coach Parry. My name is Shona Hendricks, and with me I have Nicky Freedman. We are going to be taking you through this podcast, and this podcast is focused really for females over the age of 40 who are specifically runners and who want to better their running. They want to have better health and performance, and we are going to be diving into all sorts of topics regarding exactly this. If you are pre-menopause, so before perimenopause, if you are in perimenopause, if you're post-menopause, if you're female over the age of 40, essentially, this is going to be a podcast for you focused on all of these aspects on how to better your running at this stage in life. As I mentioned, my name is Shona Hendricks, and I've got Nicky Freedman with you here. Nicky, how are you? Nice to have
Hello.
you on the podcast.
Hello. That was a cracking introduction. Great. Yes, I'm grand, thanks. I'm grand, and I'm pleased to be here and excited to get going with these podcasts going forwards. I think this will be a great thing to
Thanks,
do.
Nicky. Yeah, me too. Nicky,
Um,
just give us a little bit of a brief introduction on yourself as a runner, as a coach. Yeah, give us a brief intro.
sure. So, as a runner, I've always been interested in running. I have run cross country at school. I've dabbled in running through my life. Always been a sporty person, and since having kids, I've just been really into running, marathon running, 5Ks, park runs, 10Ks, whatever you throw at me. I just love running, trail running and stuff. So I've done over 20 marathons, including Boston, New York, San Francisco, London about 5 times, Edinburgh,
Loads.
loads.
And
Loads of park
and as
runs
a
too.
coach,
Done my 250
oh my
park
gosh,
runs.
sorry, apologies to interrupt you. That's amazing. Yeah, for our US listeners just listening, a park run, Google it. It's an amazing initiative that's started in the UK, and 5Ks in a 5K run or three mile run around parks, and yeah, amazing initiative to get people running. So well done, Nicky. 250 park runs. That's amazing.
250 park runs,
Nicky, and as
yes.
a coach, yeah.
So yes, as a coach, so I've studied science at university and I've always been heavily science driven. But when I had my kids and after, I started to read up more into triathlon and running. And I ended up chairing the local tri club. And I just found that I really loved the coaching aspect. And I got myself qualified up in triathlon and run coaching and just really took on the coaching. So, with my local run club, Harmony Athletics, and the local university lads endurance group and the triathlon group, I just started to coach and I got really, really into it and I just loved it. And predominantly, I just really loved the run coaching. And at some point or other, gosh, what was it, three
Two
years
to 3 years ago,
ago?
yeah.
We got in contact and I started helping out at Coach Parry too. So I have coached runners from 800 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters, 1500 meters, young girls, endurance, which I loved. And I've gone all the way up to endurance, ultras, comrades, um, many marathons. I mean, the common one is always marathon running, really. But I love as a coach, I probably love the 5 or 10K the most, I think. That's my favorite distance. But we do end up coaching a lot of
Yeah,
marathon
yeah.
runners as well. So I'm a UK Athletics Level 3 qualified coach and a Level 2 British Triathlon coach as
Nice.
well. Constantly learning, constantly doing courses, and I just love it. I'm really passionate about it. I love the practical face to face, and I love the online coaching as well. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's me here.
brilliant. Well, yeah,
And it's my hobby and my job as
which is
well.
always it's always I find a great blessing to have your passion as your hobby and your job. So yeah, thanks, Nicky, for that. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's great. So what about yourself? How have you come into this sort of
Yeah,
sphere.
thanks, Nicky. I come from a sports science background, so qualified as a sports scientist and worked at the University of Pretoria for 13 years. I was head of sports science there for 8 of those 13, and really my background was more in team sports, in women's football in particular, or women's soccer for our US
Oh, football,
listeners.
right.
And so yeah, I mean, come from a football family, and so always been interested in sports anyways, and very sporty myself. But then towards the latter part of my career, just really started to take a very big interest in endurance sports. So endurance running and triathlon specifically, and then started working for Coach Parry in and around 2018. And then yeah, left my role as head of sports science, where we had worked with different Olympic athletes. I'd helped Bridget Hartley, who won bronze at the 2012 Olympic Games in canoeing, and worked with a number of endurance runners towards the latter part of my career with Lindsay Perry, who we runs as our head coach here at Coach
Of
Parry.
course.
So
Yes.
Caroline Wassman, Shona Bosman, who have both won the Comrades Marathon, and Ashworth as well. So yeah, it really just started to find this big passion for endurance running. But I've always been passionate about women in sports. It's always just been a massive passion of mine. And as I came into Coach Parry and working more full time within Coach Parry, just really diving into research into the female athletes and figuring out that there isn't much on it, and if it has been done, it's not been done particularly well, and that's almost how I came to focus on this peri and postmenopausal female focus.
Yes.
But really,
Because you're
yes,
39, you're
let's
quite
let's let's
young
throw the
for.
ages out
So this
there.
is the sort of, I mean, I'm 54, and I've, I guess, been through it, and had that sort of kind of 40s, kind of wondering what's going on, perimenopause, and this sort of rocky ride. And but for yourself, as someone who's younger, how did you kind of, where did you find that focus? Where did it come from? The sort of
Interest, yeah,
interest
and
in all of
it's exactly
this?
that. I was just doing so much research into the female athletes, and there is so much on that's coming out, which is great, which is really excellent. But just notice that the female over the age of 45, or essentially the peri or postmenopausal female, has just almost been forgotten, and it's such a
Mhm.
it's a sad narrative for me, because I think there's so much that we can do to help females over the age of 45 to better their running and to have a better quality of life and health, so that's really where the interest came, and really wanted to start changing that narrative specifically. And yeah, that's where the interest came. And the more I dive into it, the more I realize that actually it's not necessarily that, I'm not saying that we can't make changes as you get older, but my age group is the group we should be targeting to make some really big changes now, so yeah.
Yeah, I think you're dead on correct there. I coached young girls, 15, 16, and we really focused on their health and their hormone health, and there was this big drive to be very clever with their smart with their training, so that they were developing well into their 20s as runners and athletes and stuff. But later on into the peri, and I mean, I came into, I didn't even know I was in perimenopause. It just sort of suddenly hit me, and I was kind of, with hindsight, I can see all the signs, but I didn't know, and I could have done a lot of different
Yeah,
things
and
at the time.
sorry to
So,
interrupt you, but yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we want to achieve with this podcast. Is I think information is
yes,
power, and so the more that we speak about this, and I'm seeing a slight change. And you and I have discussed this before in terms of just speaking about these things that are happening. So people are speaking a bit more about it, but that's the focus of what we want to do in this podcast, right? Is to give,
open up the
yep,
chat.
yep, get the chat going, change the narrative, and empower women to understand that there are these changes happening, but there are things that we can do to help mitigate some of those, some of the negative symptoms, some of the negative feelings, the feeling that you're never going to get foster again, so that's my 2 cents on that. Nikki, anything else you want to say before we get
Yeah,
started?
that's cool. Um, No, that's good. So your background, so you're still Pretoria, and are you running
Oh, yeah,
marathons,
sorry.
and
So
are
as
you
a
what's
thank you
your
for that.
situation?
Yeah, sorry, I just spoke about my career, but yes, I obviously ran as well. I love running. My favorite distance is the marathon distance. Absolutely can't stand running
Oh,
a 10K. It's pain. It's just pain, like,
oh, I love
yeah,
it.
I mean, I of course do, and we both training, but the favorite distance is marathons. Done over 10 marathons. I think I'm on 10 or 11 now. Those include London, New York, Berlin, Amsterdam, and obviously some in and around South Africa. And then I've dabbled a little bit in some ultras as well. So done the Two Oceans Ultra here in South Africa. I'm going for number 6 next year, so that'll be good. Yeah, and so
Oh, great.
interested in both of those aspects. My personal favorite, as I say, is the marathon, but yes, have dabbled in some triathlons, some half Ironman distance triathlons, and yeah, just love the sport.
So quite a variety then. You're quite a range of sport. And then football, you've obviously
Yep.
played that as well. Are you gonna tell us which football team you support?
I'm scared we'll lose listeners if I do. I mean, we support South African teams and UK teams. So I'm a Newcastle United fan. I grew up in a football family, so grew up as a Liverpool fan. So my dad would disown me at the moment for that. But yeah, I still love football as well. So yeah, I don't actually get the chance to play that often anymore because as we get older, I think the multi-directional aspects has risks for
Oh,
running,
no.
but yeah, so no, love football, love running. Yeah, just absolutely, just yeah, like you say, passion and work combined.
Passion.
What an amazing
Yeah.
space.
And you're quite into your strength training too? I know that's a bit of a thing for
Yeah,
you
I've
too.
always enjoyed lifting. And yeah, my favorite is squats and deadlifts. Absolutely love it. And so to find a way to match that with running has always been a good challenge. Yeah, so no, and we're going to dive into a lot of those topics as to how to balance all of these things. As a female runner over the age of 40. So yeah, so really looking
Yeah.
forward to that. Yeah.
So so talking of
Dive in.
diving into
Exactly. Nikki,
topics.
this is one of the biggest mistakes we see female runners over the age of 40 making. And it's across the board, right? So whether you are a beginner runner or you're an experienced runner, it's running at the correct pace in your sessions that really makes a difference. And it's the biggest mistake people make, right? That you and in your history or your experience, is it something you've seen quite often?
Yes, yes. So even this weekend, I had an issue with it. I went to run with some friends. They had promised me they were going to do a long run, a long, slow run at a certain pace. And I was like, great, I'm coming. Messaged them the day before, got the route, got the pace. Fantastic. Met them. Nice group of guys. I'm new to the area, so I wanted to meet some people. Nice group of runners, but they set off about a minute a mile
Yeah.
faster than they had said they were going to. And yeah, it was a hot day as well. So, oh, and I really struggled. Within 3 miles, I just thought this isn't going to be for me. They were aiming to run about 20, 22 miles. I'm in the middle of marathon training. And I had to call it. I had to say, guys, look, I want to do my long, slow runs as long, slow, easy runs. And this is putting me in the wrong zone, in the wrong place. And it's not going to benefit me. And I had to just bail, which was a shame. Um, Later on in the day, I looked at their Stravas and I was interested to see how they'd got on because it looked to me like a few of them weren't very comfortable running at the pace that they had been running at. And I knew actually I, that they shouldn't have been running at that pace. And I could see their Strava and the graph go
Yeah.
down. And then the last 5 miles, they were
Well,
pretty much
mm,
walking.
exactly. So
And 22 miles was what they aimed at, and that's a long distance anyway. So, I mean, that's a long run. And it was warm that day, so they maybe got slightly caught out by that. But I think that's key as well. You're gonna go run to the conditions, but in a long, slow run, when you're looking to kind of go out, it needs to be your set pace. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about physiology here and stuff, and what we're looking to train. I'm marathon training. That was supposed to be my long
yes.
run, and I wanted to hit I had a reason for doing that
Yeah.
long run.
I think,
And
yeah, sorry, Nikki. I think this is the thing, is that people think that they have to be running their long runs, at race pace, or, and really that's a mistake we're seeing, is that they're running their long and easy runs too fast, right? So that's the long and the short of that, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
way
yeah,
too fast.
exactly.
I know for a fact what these guys' marathon goals were, and they were pretty much running at the pace for their they were running pretty much at marathon pace or within 30 seconds of
Yeah.
it. 30 seconds per minute per mile, depending on. I work in minutes per mile, you work in
That's
kilometers per
fine. That's good, because
marathon
then we're
for
helping
long.
everyone on either end of that. But those,
So
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so they were really on the upper end, and we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about the
Yeah.
physiology of this and what we're looking to do when we're
Yeah.
training. Um,
Yeah, let's dive into that. I think, it's in order to understand why running too fast in your easy and long runs isn't helpful to your training. We have to understand the physiology first. So just diving into that a little bit,
Correct.
I think, as endurance runners, as people who are training for anything from a 1500 up, perhaps 5K is more common. Perhaps, that people are running anything from 5K up to ultra distance. We are essentially working what we call our aerobic capacity. Just to understand the physiology, we actually have three specific energy systems that we're utilizing all the time, right? So we have our ATP glycolytic system, we have our aerobic capacity, and our anaerobic capacity. It's very important to understand that this shift between those three energy systems doesn't just happen like a light switch. We don't go from one to the other as a black and white line. We are always utilizing some form of those three energy systems. We're not going to talk about the ATP glycolytic one, because that's really for what we would consider 0 to 8 seconds or 0 to 10 seconds of initial endurance or exercise. But again, just note that these things are always working in conjunction. So we're going to focus more on our aerobic capacity and our anaerobic capacity. And so for endurance runners, we need to build our engine, which is our aerobic capacity. Of course, we have aspects of anaerobic capacity that we need to focus on as well. And again, just a reminder, and I'm going to keep reiterating that, is that these two work in conjunction all the time. They're not a light switch or a flick that we then switch to go, this is now we're in anaerobic, now we're in aerobic.
so we're always training in both zones then, basically, aren't we?
Yes, perhaps more so,
One and more so
than the
than the
other. So it's almost
others?
a bit more like a scale as opposed to a black and white zone. And we can
Okay.
talk about zones now, and just to understand that, because we have almost simplified this exercise physiology into training zones. So it's just important for people to realize that we always are using both, but at times we are using more of one and less of the other. So from a training zone perspective, Nicky, if you maybe want to dive a little bit into how we've adapted this physiology into
But we need them,
into the
yes.
training zones.
Yeah. So, when you're marathon training, we're really looking to build that lovely aerobic zone that you're talking about, but we need to tap into the other zone at the same time. And that tapping into that other zone is just going to help us a little bit at the edge of a race. But to start with, the aerobic zone, and I think a lot of people are familiar with this because we talk about Z2 training, and we want to really work and develop on our easy pace running. So we have what's known as Z1, which is a recovery zone, which would be light, brisk walking type. Maybe you're able to nose breathe, but as you move up to Z2, you would need to open your mouth and breathe through your mouth. And that's a good indicator that you're in your Z2. And there's that Z2 phase is quite a big zone to train in. And what I wanted to do on Saturday was go out and run a long run at the lower end of my Z2 and keep it nice and really easy and chat the whole way round. That's what I wanted to be able to do. But also, even as you come up to the top of your Z2, that would be about your marathon pace. and you're still in the aerobic zone. So that's a nice, easy zone. Maybe you're touching into zone 3 slightly there. And zone 3 would be what people often refer to or start to talk about in their tempo zones. So the tempo zone is sort of marathon pace going on up. It's quite a big zone. It covers quite a lot. And when you're in, say, marathon training, anything from 5K up to marathon training and even ultra training, you're really looking at establishing that massive aerobic base and then working up into zone 3 and 4, which would be, I think we're going to talk about perceived exertion, but sort of 7 or 8 out of 10 sort of efforts. And that's where you have some quality interval training, maybe some tempo runs, structured once a week in your plan that helps you develop that higher end zone.
Yeah.
So just to take that back, so I've been describing a kind of 5-stage model there. Zone 1, recovery. Zone 2, really still in the aerobic. Zone 1, Zone 2, both aerobic, but Zone 2, getting that nice easy pace running up to steady pace running. Zone 3 is entering into your tempo phase and is then costing a little bit more on your body. And zone 4 is where we want to do some nice quality sessions, quality intervals, maybe some threshold work. And zone 5 is really kind of a bit more full out and stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
100%. And so we utilize the 5-zone model at Coach Parry, and we'll dive a little bit later into how we balance this in terms of, what polarization, or, there's obviously different models. We work with the 5-zone model, but just so that everyone knows and understands that there are other models out there. There's a 3-zone model, there's a 7-zone model. Again, just finding something and sticking to it, I think is the key thing. So yeah, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of how we've adapted physiology into those training zones specifically. Nicky, what?
And I think it's about
Ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's about getting those right zones so that the cost on your body is less. So for me, if I had run with my friends at their pace, the cost on my body would have been huge for the rest of my training week. What I wanted to do was get the same benefit, which I would have done running slower. The cost on my body would have been less, or it was less, because I ended up running a long run, but doing it much slower pace. And then the cost of my body is less, and then I can train better. And then when I come to my hard training, I can train harder and get into that zone 4 better. So
that's what I was actually going to ask you or suggest is, why is this important? And you've answered that. It's because it affects your recovery for the following sessions. So if you just push that little bit too hard in those sessions, your following days are affected. And as females, perhaps over the age of 40, over the age of 45, recovery is so key, right? And this is a part of recovery, is not pushing too hard in those sessions so that your following days are aren't affected. And so, Nicky, how do we essentially take this further? What does this mean for the average runner out there? How do they work out these zones? How do they know that they're training in the correct zone? If you want to recover from sessions faster, not feel tired all the time, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join me in my upcoming training specifically for female runners over the age of 45. In it, I'll share with you my simple 5-step framework that'll transform your running. Simply scan the QR code on screen now, or click on the link in the description to save your seats in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
That's a tricky question, isn't it? I mean, it's a tricky one for them. When you're new to this sport, I think it's really difficult. And really, as we've talked about a lot at Coach Parry, it's the talk test, isn't it? So you want to do, and if I'm at track with my runners, I coach a local track club here, and really to teach, what I've spent a lot of time is teaching the guys. They're a mixture of ages actually, but first off, I get them to run 400 meters breathing through their nose. And they find that really difficult. And I sort of said, but if you're really breathing through your nose and you can keep your mouth shut, you're in Z1, you're nice and recovery, and you're having to run really, really slowly. Now notch it up a little bit, so you have to open your mouth. You're in Z2 now. But that Z2, as I said before, is quite a big boundary, and you should be able to talk for quite a long time through that Z2, and you should be really comfortable with talking, not really puffing or panting at all. As you start to get to the top of Z2 and into Z3, you'll start to puff and pant a little bit, and the words will become, in fact, you'll be wanting your friend to chat so that you don't have to
Yeah.
chat. And that's the sort of zone where you know that you're starting to get a little bit too much for you. And I noticed that on Saturday with there was a couple of folks there who weren't chatting much, and that was the start of the run. And I thought, gosh, they're going to be in trouble later on. And actually, it turned out that they were only running 5 miles, and that's all, and they were off home. So I was like, oh, right, okay.
But probably,
But even
running,
then,
yeah, probably running too fast. Yeah.
it was the wrong pace.
Yeah. So, sorry.
So, and then
No, you go.
when you're getting up to 4 and 5, you're not talking really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. You're not. And I like the way you use the talk idea or the talk test. One of the things that I use, whether it's with a beginner runner or someone who's slightly more experienced, is using your perceived exertion. So we call it rate of perceived exertion, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being that you can do that activity all day long, right? And 10 feeling like you want to die.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my general scale.
We don't really want to go there.
We don't want to go there at all. And you mentioned that first 400 where you're able to breathe through your nose, and that would be the 0 and 1 for me. On so if someone's going for a long walk, or they should be able to maintain that activity for a very long time. But on a scale of 0 to 10, they're averaging it at around 0 to 1. Excuse me. When we are getting into our more sort of zone 2 that you're speaking about, for me, it still needs to be considered easy. So we have to change now I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but we need to change our way of thinking, that we're not talking about running slow. We're talking about running easy enough. So for you, on a scale or for me and my athletes, on a scale of 0 to 10, we're looking at that to be anywhere between a 2 and maximum a 4. Even a 4 for me is almost tapping on that moderate zone 3 aspect. So your easy and your long runs should be sitting somewhere between a 2 and at most a 4. And obviously everyone's going to have very subjective feelings of this.
Yes.
And then, as you mentioned, as we're getting more towards some of our intervals and harder kind of work, then we are looking at around maybe a heavy 6 to an 8, maybe a 9. But for most of our work, we don't generally need to be tapping into a maximum effort. We don't always go into that. We want to be sitting more in around a zone 4, which is around that 7 to 8, maybe a 9 aspect. On rate of perceived exertion. So I quite like that as a metric to use, because it's an internal subjective metric. And what I find is that what people can do is, if you track that over time, you'll then start to see, okay, well, your run on Saturday, as an example, was probably initially scored at like a 4, maybe a 5, and you then know that you can go back and then match that with other metrics. So I don't know, other metrics that you might use. People talk about heart rate and pace. Are there other things that you specifically like to use as a coach?
I suppose, yeah, I use a bit of heart rate as guides, but I'm very careful with heart rate. How about you? I really won't use heart rate unless my runner is wearing a heart rate strap. And I'm quite particular about that. The watches, they're getting better and better all the time. There's definitely no question. They're getting better, and they'll give you trends. But a heart rate strap just measures your heart rate directly. And you're nodding your head.
I agree with you. Sorry to interrupt. I just agree. If we're going to be using a metric, we need to make sure that data is reliable. And if it's not, then there's no point in using it. So chest strap all the way. I agree. The wrist base, and people argue this with us all the time. They are getting better, but they are always going to have some unreliability, especially in cold conditions because the blood is moving away from the extremities, so it's, you got to understand that
Yes.
as watch is measuring around your wrist. It's taking that pulse around your wrist. And so, yeah, chest strap
Yes.
all the way. So yeah, let's get that out of the way. But yes, so from a heart rate perspective, Nikki, you were saying?
I think, and so very often when I come to a new client or a new athlete who's new, and I've had one recently who's come along to me, and I know her quite well. I've seen her Strava. I know she runs quite fast and she's got away with it and she's a good runner. But she's come along and I've said, well, look, I want to slow you down. And like you talk about, it's not slowing actually. It's easy and it's your gears. And what I want is to find your gears in running. And that 5-stage model is a lovely model that just focuses on your gears, and if you can dial into your gears. So I asked her to buy a heart rate strap, and I asked her to keep a low heart rate, and she came and she said, look, Nicky, honestly, I have a really high heart rate when I run. I just, how often have we heard this? I have a ridiculously high heart rate and I don't think I can do anything about it. So I actually just set her a figure and I just said, I want you to stay below that figure, whatever, running, walking, whatever. And she was like, I just can't. And I said, well, tell you what, just go and walk your dog today and tell me what it is. So that was fine. Her heart rate didn't go mad. Her resting heart rate, I know, is low. So that's all good. And so then she went out the next day for a run, keeping it low. And she was like, I felt really good. And she's had a hamstring niggle for like a year. And I said, this will sort your injury if you can learn to run easy and then do your hard sessions when you need to. And so I find that using heart rate helps the athlete to dial into their rate of perceived exertion and get to know themselves a little bit better, because I think they still have a tendency to say, oh no, but that was 4 out of
Yes,
10
true.
or 3 out of 10. And so I think by using heart rate for a couple of months to start with a new athlete, gets them to really dial in, really know where they're at. I think I can run and probably tell
Yeah.
you where my heart rate is most of the
Yeah.
time. And you get to that point where you can really feel that. But I think a lot of runners are still, I definitely have one friend who thinks that she is running easy and her heart rate's really very
Yeah, so
high. You must have
Oh,
friends like that too
100%.
and
I mean,
stuff.
absolutely. But I think your point there is quite key. And I often then say to athletes, let's focus on 3 specific metrics, right? So I do also think too many metrics is getting, we start getting
Yes,
sort of confounded in the data, but 3 metrics. So I like using heart rate. I like using rates of perceived exertion because those are both internal measures. So that gives you a good idea, like you've just said. And then the third metric I generally like to use is pace. So then you can have a good balance and really see, well, was that run
yes,
really easy? My pace said it was, or said it wasn't, but my heart rate actually was, through the roof. And there's always those factors. And then actually, yeah, I was really tired, and it could just be, I rated that run at a 3 out of 10, and those could be different measures or different reasons as to why that run maybe didn't feel as easy. You may be tired, you may be stressed, but overall, we're focusing here more on, because we just see that people are not running easy enough. So I think using those metrics is important.
mm,
But yeah, I think, and Nikki, in terms of, because we always, you say this, and people always say to us, oh, but I am running easy. I think we need to understand that it's the internal measure. So it's your heart rate and your perceived exertion is all because of where that physiology is based. It's not about running. Like people will say, okay, well, I should be running, but I have to walk at that intensity. And we have to understand that we need to train
yeah.
for where we are now. But Nikki, what are your views on using walking as a way of helping to control this, managing to keep these runs easy?
It's essential in the start. I think really essential. I think when you're first learning the techniques of and it is a technique to run easy, it's a skill that you need to learn. And I think everybody comes to it eventually. um, but I think especially my athletes, when I do the heart rate training to get them to run easy, is often they'll run a little bit fast, then have to walk for 30 seconds and then do it that way. And that they'll sort of slowly progress it so the walk breaks will become less. But I think with some of our athletes who come onto the platform, sometimes they just have to walk briskly and that's their heart rate enough. And that's just showing really that they need to build that aerobic base, and they will eventually start to run. And I mean, have you seen it quite a bit with that, with the
Yep.
walking? And I love walking in training
Yep.
for running. Personally, I love it. I use it all the time for myself, and I'm a big fan of it, but it's something that runners don't like because they see it
They
as a
see it as a
fail.
weakness, and I
But,
really want to start getting people to see walking as a superpower, right? So you're able to
yes,
go further for longer, and maybe let me just dive into a little bit of the physiology here as well, just very quickly. Is every time we're
cool.
running, every time we land, or let me just start the other way. Every time we push off the ground, so your foot lands and we push off, your muscles are contracting what we call concentrically. So they're coming together. The muscle fibers are pulling together. Every time we land on the ground, is that shock absorbing aspect. Our muscles are contracting, but the fibers are pulling apart. So you can see that is, I don't want to say weaker, but there's more damage that happens every single time we land.
Yes,
And the faster you go, the more of that eccentric contraction is happening. So by slowing down slightly, we are lessening, is that an English word? Like less making the eccentric contractions less. So there's less damage
sorry.
to your muscles in that run. So you're having less damage. By adding in some walk breaks, you're also then less eccentric contractions, which means less damage to your muscles. And as we mentioned at the beginning, it's about having less damage to your body, because when we're running, there's damage physiologically that's taking place, so that when we run our next run, we have the capacity to do that. And so often we see runners running their easy and their easy and long runs way too fast. So they're just tapping into that high zone 3. And then when they have to come and do their intervals or their speed or any other kind of faster session, they don't have the capacity to hit that higher zone. So what we're suggesting here is to say, try and make that easy run a little bit easier. So you're sitting here in that easier zone, in zone 2, which then allows you a greater capacity to then hit that harder run a little bit harder. And that's what we're looking for. Essentially just having the capacity to run those hard runs hard by keeping your easy runs easy. You
Yeah.
agree, Nicky, if that's what we're sort of looking at?
Yeah, so adding in the walk breaks and stuff, just you're gonna come out of those easier runs feeling a bit more
Yeah,
energized rather than depleted, and the cost to your body just being too much to then tackle those interval
I
sessions.
agree.
And that's like the crux of a lot of our
Yeah,
plans on Coach
yeah.
Parry, really, isn't it?
And
So,
and
that's it. I
sorry,
mean,
I was saying to you just before we jumped on this onto the podcast. I mean, a great way to think about this, if you're struggling to think about it, is to think about having a glass or two of wine every night. Okay, it's fun. You're not necessarily hungover the next day. You had a little bit of fun, and you're not hungover. You're like, oh well, I can do that again and again and again. But if you do that every day for 20 years, there is going to be some damage to your liver, right? And I want you to think about that with your easy runs in the same way. If you're going a little bit too fast in those easy runs, it's fun, right? We love running fast. But the damage that if you're doing that every single time you're running, the damage that you're doing to your muscles and to the physiology over time becomes a lot. And you can really then, that's where we are getting overly tired, overly fatigued, perhaps pushing into some injuries, some overtraining. And so just really, really focusing on keeping those easy runs easy so that you can do your hard runs nice and hard. Yeah.
I like that. So what we're saying is you're not allowed to drink
No,
wine?
that's definitely not what we're saying, and maybe that's something our listeners will learn about us. We're all about being realists, and if I wasn't a sports scientist, I'd definitely be a winemaker. So no, not against drinking. So that's actually, let's put that back in the analogy. Not saying that we shouldn't do any fast runs. So I'm not saying don't drink at all, don't have no fun, but let's put them in the right sort of space in our plan. So yeah, let's make sure that we're doing our easy runs easy. So we're not drinking every night, we're not having fun every night, but we're allowing ourselves to have fun every now and then and go run. I mean, we love running fast, right? I mean, that's people always say that to me, that this is
Yes.
boring. That's why it's frustrating for them. But if you understand the
Mhm.
concept, I think that's yeah, quite a key aspect to realizing why this is so important.
No, I love that
Analogy,
analogy. It's great, and I think that's so true. It's just that structure of
yeah,
training is just really important to get the best to especially if you've got a big goal like a marathon
yeah,
or a 10K and you really want to get a faster time or complete or, feel good in the training because that's what we're
yeah,
looking for. So it works well with
yeah,
wine as well.
exactly.
You wanna
Definitely, I love that.
you wanna have some fun, but you
You
wanna
want to feel
feel
good,
good all the
exactly.
time
Very,
too.
very
So
cool.
yeah, we wanna feel well and good and stuff.
So,
So,
Nikki, how do we
yeah.
structure this then? I mean, we have a specific way at Coach Parry and how we structure all our training plans. How much of this easy running should we be doing versus how much of the high intensity running should we be doing in our plans? Whether you 5K, marathon, ultra
Yeah.
marathoner.
So we generally, our plans are mostly based around the 80-20, but 90 to 10 or an 80 to 20 both work really well depending on where you
Yes.
are in your running career. So maybe if you're in early stages of your running career, you're maybe just looking at
Yeah.
90-10 a little bit and building that nice sort of lots of easy running and that aerobic base, the foundation
Yeah.
for running is going to work really nicely for you. Then if you're a little bit more advanced in your running and have been running for a good number of years, 80-20 is going to work well for you. And that's what most of our plans are based around, I would say, and that's what I base most of my training around.
Yeah,
How about you, Shona?
100%, and definitely also varying that personally in the time of season, right? So if I've ran a race and
Yeah,
then I take some recovery time, I don't jump straight back into 80-20. I would spend maybe a bit more 90-10. So doing a lot more of a
yeah,
base, building up that engine again before we tap into the turbo almost. And I know, Nikki, you use, and well, we both actually quite enjoy strides in the plan. And strides is a big part of what I would then use as my 10 in that beginning phase of a training plan. Um,
yes.
yeah, I mean, it is a great way to start gearing up towards those higher gears, that 4 and 5 zone. Yeah, how do you use strides in particular? Maybe explain what
Definitely.
strides are to everyone first before we dive.
Strides are short bursts of faster running, not sprinting, just faster running. So what you're looking to do is
Sorry.
maybe during one of your easy runs, just find a couple of lampposts 50 to 100 meters apart, which roughly take you 20 to 30 seconds to run, and just run those nice and fast, but not. In fact, if you're new to it, I would start sort of moderately fast and work the pace up. But that's you just practicing getting into your kind of zone 4 really and a bit of faster running. With a lot of my athletes, I start just with some of their easy runs, a couple of times a week, 4 times 30 seconds, and that's all is really required. And then I slowly build that up over time. So even if my athletes are maybe doing a quality session once a week, they'll still do another run with, say, 4, 6, 8 strides in it as well. And I think that's a nice way to add in a little bit extra without too much cost to your
Load.
body, as we've been talking
Exactly.
about before. But it's also a great way to start and prepare yourself for some quality
Yeah.
workouts at some point. What do you
Yeah, you're
think?
spot on.
Do you
I
use it a
do. I
lot?
use I
Yeah?
use strides a lot personally. I use strides a lot with clients because, like you say, it's such a great. For me, it's a nice way to just start getting specific activations or neuromuscular firing. Recruitment of muscle fibers.
Yes.
It's such a nice way to start that and then to progress. Because again, that was one of the next points I wanted to speak about was just progression of how we build this up. And so you hit the nail on the head earlier when you spoke about the 80-20 principle. We don't want to just dive straight into, running 80%. If you're new to running, I would really say the majority of your running should be done in your easy zone 2. And we will progress that towards then more of an 80-20 kind of principle. But Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It just wakes your body
Yes,
up, doesn't it?
exactly.
It just we're gonna be doing some faster work soon,
Yeah,
so
physiologically, that's exactly it. It's just recruiting more muscle fibers than the easy running does, and that's why it's such a great primer or base to start some of our faster running on. Um, so yeah, and then Nikki, just lastly, just before we call it off, I don't think we actually gave
Mhm.
people a tangible. How do we, I mean, you mentioned heart rate, so maybe just, I mean, yeah, I'm also happy to jump in here, but how does someone determine what that zone two is for them? And let's use heart rates as an example. If you want to chat about pace, you can as well. But how do they work that out for themselves?
Oh, that's gonna be so there's many ways to kind of do that, really. I would still, if they're new to, I'd still like to do the talk test. If they're gonna do a heart rate test and work out their threshold heart rate, that's a bit more
Yeah,
complex, I think, at this stage. Um, I think, for where we're at in this podcast just now, I think really if you're just comfortable talking
yeah.
a lot, that's gonna work. What do you think? Would you kind of move
Yeah,
to
I
the
mean,
heart
let's
rate?
if someone does using
I
heart rate,
I often just give them a fixed
okay,
value and say, "I want you
know that.
below
Okay,
that," but that, strictly speaking, might not be in their
yes,
Z2 if they're a little bit older, but I find that that's always a good
yeah,
starting
yeah.
point.
If someone is a little bit more
Um,
experienced, has been running for a long time, if we are going to be talking threshold, then we can dive into this in future episodes. But just
I
as a
think yeah,
basic rule, I think if you have done a hard, you know 30 to 40 minutes effort
5K,
of like a
yeah.
time trial, sort of 5 to 10 Ks, just depending on your ability, taking that average heart rate, which has been measured with a chest strap, which is important.
Heart
Yeah,
rate strap,
to
yes.
then maybe, to be looking at the average over that 30 to 40-minute period, and you looking somewhere between 75% to maybe 82% of that average heart rate. That would then be your zone two. Yeah, and go and work that out for yourself, because you'll be surprised and you'll be going, oh, actually, that isn't, that I'm always sitting above that. And so I think Nikki's point on the talk test. So take the talk test, take that heart rate, take the RPE and how you're feeling, and use those three metrics to go, am I really running easy in these training runs?
Yeah, yep. Easy is the way forward. Find your
Find your gears,
gears.
and let's. It's not about talking. We're not talking
Find your
slow.
gears.
We're talking about running easy. So I think that's just a key point
Yeah,
as well. Yeah,
just your gears, the progression up the speeds
brilliant.
and stuff.
Excellent. Well,
Good
yeah,
stuff.
Nikki, thank you for your
Excellent.
time. I always enjoy these chats with you, and hopefully everyone got a
Yeah,
ton of value from this on understanding how to pace their training runs and to not be running too fast. Yeah, any parting shots from you that you
good.
want to say before we go?
I think we covered quite a lot
Excellent.
there, don't you? So till next time when we can
Yeah,
cover some more, but there's plenty of topics still to
yeah,
open up.
definitely.
So nice to chat.
Excellent. Thank you, Nikki, and yeah, we'll see you guys all soon in the next episode.